Hello, writers, and welcome to episode number 53 of the Well-Storied podcast. I am Kristen Kieffer, and this podcast is where I translate articles from the Well-Storied blog into audio so you can listen in on the go. Today we're covering the topic that I promised you we'd cover in last week's episode. So, as you may have heard me talk about before, a couple of weeks ago I knew I wanted to write an article on story ideas, but I wasn't sure if the angle I should take should be how to brainstorm and come up with new story ideas, or how to choose between the many story ideas you may have rumbling around in that head of yours. And so I took to Twitter, I ran a poll, got lots of really great feedback, so thank you all for that. And both topics ended up being really popular. There was almost a 50-50 split between which of the different angles on this topic writers needed most. So I promised you I would cover them both, and so we have. Episode number 51 is where you can learn all about how to brainstorm new story ideas. We talk about 3 different powerful brainstorming methods that you can use, and then today we are diving deep into how to decide which exciting story idea to write next. And so if you would like to read along as you listen in, make sure to head on over to well-storied.com/decide. All right, let's get started. How to decide which exciting story idea to write next. Have 100 thrilling story ideas rumbling around in that brain of yours? Choosing which of those many ideas to write next can seem impossible, especially when you're unsure which idea best aligns with your aims and abilities as a writer. But have no fear. Today we're going to cut through option overwhelm by discussing the tips and tricks that can provide clarity as you decide which exciting story idea to write next. Are you considering the right kind of ideas, though? There are ideas for stories, and then there are story ideas. The difference being that story ideas have workable premises, whereas ideas for stories are merely scraps of inspiration that haven't yet found a home. For example, you may be excited about an idea for a new magic system, or a fun meet-cute, or one heck of a heart-wrenching scene. But unless you have characters and core conflicts to go along with those ideas, you likely won't get far into your pre-writing or discovery drafting process before you hit a wall. If you have a premise, on the other hand, you have promise. Premises, you see, pull storytelling weight. They can be plotted and they provide structural clarity as you draft, reasonably ensuring that the story idea you ultimately choose to write won't turn into a flop. To create a premise for your own story, simply answer the following questions. You have probably heard these quite a bit if you've been listening in to all of our recent episodes, but I think they're worth repeating. So, you want to ask yourself, who is the protagonist? What is their goal? How do they plan to achieve their goal? What disaster will throw the protagonist off balance? Who or what will oppose them? And what is the core conflict? Here's an example of what a story's premise can look like. This comes from my own premise for my work in progress, Lady Legacy. With her medical training complete, ambitious healer Cleona Gotrek sets out to become a world-renowned physician by earning a commission at royal court. But when her first prominent patient dies mysteriously within her care, Cleona must salvage her legacy by mending the heart of a grief-stricken prince, quelling the suspicions of his superstitious companion, and finding the cure to a strange and deadly power taking root within her. I don't believe any time spent writing is ever wasted, as there's always something to be learned from your experiences. But if you want to save yourself a little time and frustration, take care to choose story ideas that stir both passion and potential. Now for my top tips for choosing between story ideas. Choosing between story ideas can feel a bit like pulling teeth, but there are a few tips and tricks that can make the process a little less harrowing. Perhaps the simplest of suggestions is this. If one story idea excites you more than all the others, choose that one. Concerns about your ability to write or market a particular story can certainly weigh heavy, but I believe passion to be magnetic. If you pour your heart and hard work into a story you love, there won't be any room for regret. If, however, you're eager to write all of your story ideas, here are a few tips and tricks, presented in no particular order, that can help you make the best decision for you and your writing life. Tip number 1. Define your why. What is your intent for the next book you write? Do you want it to be your publishing debut or to fill a specific place in your publishing plan? Would you like it to help grow your fan fiction following or put a smile on your children's faces? Or are you writing simply for yourself? By defining the purpose you want your next book to fulfill, you should gain a clearer understanding of which story ideas can provide the most creative fulfillment. Tip number 2, identify your current creative season. Our writing lives go through seasons. Sometimes we need our writing to be a sure, stable oasis in our otherwise chaotic days. Other times, our creative energies are bouncing off the walls, urging us to write, write, write. Identifying your current creative season can help you choose the story idea that best fits your needs. For example, you may want to save your most ambitious story idea for a time when your creative energies are running high, whereas a fun and simple story idea may be the best choice to pursue when life gets tough. Tip number 3, be a bit grim about it. If you knew you could only write one more story before your time was up, which story idea would you choose? Albeit a bit grim, asking yourself this question can help single out the story idea that's most captured your heart. For some, that idea may be the most outrageous in their repertoire, or the one that finishes out their series. Others may choose to write the idea that tackles an issue weighing heavy on their hearts, or perhaps the idea that simply feels right. Whatever the case, it's time to write with no regrets. You never know which story may be your last. Sorry, that's a little bit sad. But on to tip number 4 we go. Mull over the practicalities. When choosing the story idea you want to write next, you'll want to balance passion with practicality. You'll likely spend the next several months or even years working with the story idea you choose. Is it one you feel confident dedicating your time and attention to writing? Alternatively, mulling over the practicalities of your story ideas may point out which are more of a flash in the pan than stories you want to spend your foreseeable future creating. And finally, tip number 5, consider which idea is most unique. Sometimes the most exciting ideas are those that challenge old tropes or put a fresh spin on classic storylines. Do you have a story idea you believe will challenge the standards of your genre or the publishing industry as a whole? Don't back down from that challenge. Pursuing the most revolutionary idea in your arsenal can be a great way to liven up your writing life and help your work stand out from the crowd. Choosing which of your many story ideas to write next certainly isn't easy. With any luck, the tips and tricks we outlined today should help you whittle down your options by clarifying which ideas best align with your aims and abilities as a writer. If you're still stuck, however, between 2 or 3 ideas, you may simply need to pull the trigger. Choose one from a hat. Close your eyes and point. Have a trusted friend choose for you. Remember, the only thing worse than having to choose between several exciting story ideas is never writing a word because you refuse to take action. Make decisions that are right for you and where you are in your writing life, and I promise you'll have no regrets, writer. It's time to get your next creative endeavor underway. Writer, did today's tips and tricks help you cut through all that option overwhelm? I hope you're feeling much more confident in your ability to choose the story idea that's best for you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do go ahead and give it a like, a rating, or a review wherever you're listening in from. If you're unsure of where you can listen in from, in case you're not listening in on the platform that you prefer, the Well-Storied podcast is available directly on the Well-Storied website, as well as on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. I will leave those links for you in the episode description below, so make sure to go ahead and check those out. Also, it would just mean the world to me if you could share this podcast with any writing friends or acquaintances you may have, whether in person or online. Any little, kind of word of mouth really helps the podcast grow, and it's just very much appreciated, so thank you. And finally, if you would like to help support the podcast monetarily, help me cover the expenses involved in creating and running it, as well as running the Well-Storied website as a whole, you can become a Well-Storied patron today over on patreon.com/wellstoried. If you don't know, Patreon is simply a place where you can back your favorite creators monetarily. So you can pledge as little as just $1 a month to support all that they create, and that really goes a long way. So if you would like to check that out, again, I will leave the link for that in the episode description for you today. All right, writers, I believe that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for listening in today. And again, I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. I cannot wait, as always, to continue sharing with you. Our episode of the Well-Storied podcast Archived is coming up this Monday. It is the one that I promised you a little over a week ago. Our episode on the 11 steps you can take to transform your plot bunny or your story idea into a fully fledged novel. So make sure to come back and check that out this Monday, and I will see you guys then. Bye.